Hello and welcome to the Richard Donaldson Show. I'm going to jump straight in because I'm sure most of you are aware right now that Britain is currently set to potentially erupt after the Henry Novak footage was released alongside the 999 call made by the Digwar family. Now, on Tuesday this week, thousands of us took to Southampton to hold a protest and a vigil outside the very police station that sent officers to respond to Henry's stabbing, and ultimately behaved in such an atrocious way that it's my true and honest belief that the police officers played a part in ending Henry's life prematurely. Now, take a look at the protest itself. It was really powerful stuff. I had chills the entire time I was there, particularly at the beginning. And it was incredibly sad. I saw the footage. The footage itself was released the night before we ended up going to the protest. We protested on the Tuesday. The night before was the Monday. The footage got released, the Bodycam footage, and I knew I had to get involved. I went along and it was... it should have been about honouring Henry Novak's memory, supporting his grieving family and calling out the Digwar family who essentially tried to cover up Vikram's disgusting actions. Now, make no mistake, they should be facing justice too. I genuinely believe that. It also, though, it should have been about demanding real justice from the police officers who were involved and from the entire establishment that clearly runs a blatant two-tier system, one that protects certain ethnic groups while treating white British people as second-class citizens in our own country. Now, I did my bit to honour Henry. I promoted it. I paid for the online ads. I liaised and planned with other high-profile people. I drove 6 hours to Southampton in an effort to do my little bit to help contribute to making it as big as possible with such short notice. But thousands of you also did the same. You travelled. You took your time, your effort, your energy, and you put it into Tuesday. You wanted to turn up for Henry, for his family, and for the reasons that I've just mentioned. Thousands. I reckon there was about 3,500 people there, which was fantastic at such short notice, like I say. We stood shoulder to shoulder in honour of Henry. And for a while, it was powerful. We were united. However, sadly and predictably, the mood turned and anger boiled over into violence. Let's take a look.
Come away! Come away! Get out of the way! Fucking into it! Grab the This is what I mean. When it comes to taking exploitation of us vulnerable in society, you have to expect this sort of reaction. Civil unrest is the inevitability of mass migration. As soon as an area is demographically replaced, this is what happens, because people no longer recognise the Britain that they previously knew from their generations, from their family, from their ancestors.
So yeah, for anyone who's not watching this, if you're just listening, basically they took what we call a biffa bin, set it alight, and then rolled it towards police officers. Fireworks. Just ridiculous. But people are angry, and I understand people's anger. I'm angry. Take a look at this one.
You're all scum! You think you're safe with that uniform on? You're all scumbag cunts! Lock it up! We don't support you!
Now, most of those police officers are just regular people doing their job. Most police officers sign up because they want to help their communities. They want to do some good. I wanted to be a police officer years ago. I tried to join up. I was very young. I'm glad I didn't do it. But I wanted to be a police officer. I wanted to do good in my community. And I think it's the same for most police officers nowadays in this country and worldwide. They do it for the right reasons. Now, it's worth noting that none of those police officers stood there were the ones that responded to Henry. So they're not the individuals that we should be angry at. It escalated. And then it escalated some more.
Come on! Who's that guy in the suit?
Fucking fair play to him all.
He's come back 100 years ago, geezer! Fucking hell!
Yeah.
He's come to show you how it's done!
Like him.
Go on, geezer!
Mr. Moustache, man.
Like the last one! How many think he's fucking geezer?
Now he's back.
Yes. Yes.
I love that. Oh my days. Yeah. Have that you punch. How does that feel? How does that feel, you wanker?
The tree! You fucking bitches!
How does that feel, you punch?
And again, for anyone listening and not watching, I do apologise. To you, that'll just be a load of noise. But what we've just seen there is essentially, you know, the people who turned up for the vigil slash protest for Henry. We're talking local people here and people nationwide. They've turned up. People are angry. People are sad, but people are angry because this is an 18-year-old boy that just did not need to die. He did not need to be put in this position. And not only was he stabbed by a Sikh man who, quite frankly, must have been out of his fucking mind to do what he did, the police response just was not good enough. Now, I'm not going to play the footage. You've either seen it, in which case you don't need to see it again, or you haven't seen it, and I don't recommend it. I really don't. It's stuck with me for since Monday night when I saw it. On the Monday night, I'm not ashamed to admit, I watched the footage. I got incredibly drunk, and on Tuesday I was really hungover when I got to Southampton. This has hit so many of us so hard. Those of us who have got children, I've got a young son myself, and you can't help but imagine your... Sorry about that. I can't remember where I was up to. I think we all as parents, we can't help but put ourselves in that position. I know it's quite a selfish thing to do because it's not your child that this has happened to, but it's something that, as a parent, it's what you do. And the footage itself, we are going to get through this. We're going to get through this show. The footage itself was dreadful. I don't recommend watching it, and I understand why so many people are angry, because we've all seen it. However, I am convinced that this unrest, as angry as people were, I think it was initially sparked by establishment plants who were mixed into it was a mixture of things. It was establishment plants who were mixed into the crowd. So for anyone who isn't unaware, it happens a lot with the left where people get planted into the crowd, but it also happens on the right as well to cause unrest, for people to just do little things. There was a guy who was riding around on a bike. If he's watching this, I doubt he is. Dickhead, because he was riding around on his bike, and even during the moment's silence, we took a minute's silence for Henry, he was shouting, "Fuck the police, during a minute's silence. It was so disrespectful. Now, people are put into the crowds to do these sorts of things, to make people angry so that people react. We know that. And so I think there was a mixture of things that happened. It was people like that, plants, who were placed into the crowd, but also by police officers who repeatedly shoved people, including me, without provocation, to get a reaction. One copper, essentially, it was a punch but a push in my back as we were setting off. And as I turned around to say, like, I thought it was someone in the crowd. As I turned around to say, like, what are you doing? He just smiled at me. So the police tried to provoke things as well to get a reaction. But I think it was also, genuinely, it was caused by a handful of brainless idiots who showed up pissed or high or stoned on God knows what, just looking for trouble. And we get that everywhere. Now, we can't control how the police or, you know, these people who've been planted into the crowd, we can't control how they behave, but we can and we should control how we behave. And we are seeing it far too often. We are seeing these opportunist clowns who just seem to want to hijack any event to try and justify behaving like fucking morons, like thugs. And I think that if we want to win, we have to professionalise. We need to do better. The world was watching us on Tuesday. Elon Musk reposted my post. US media outlets have been reporting on it. And it's been discussed in Parliament. And since Tuesday, the headlines and discussion should have been filled with Henry's story and how thousands of us chanted, "I can't breathe," together. I played it at the beginning there. We were chanting, "I can't breathe," together. And it was so powerful. It was properly powerful. That's what it should have been about. That's what the headlines should have been about. But instead, because of the stupidity of a tiny minority who couldn't or didn't want to control themselves and allowed themselves to be manipulated, the whole news cycle is now about fucking wheelie bins, garden fences, and paint pots. And look, I'll say it because so many people on the so-called right, particularly people in like prominent positions, they're not saying it. I'm ashamed. I'm ashamed at the conduct that was put on Tuesday in Southampton. I'm ashamed. I'm embarrassed. We must be better. We must rise above the antagonists and we must keep our focus on the mission. Our country literally depends on it. Now, Henry's father stood outside that courthouse. I don't know how he did it, right? And he gave that speech. And people on the left are using this because it fits their narrative, and people on the so-called right are dismissing it because it doesn't. I don't consider myself on any side. I consider myself as someone who just looks at it and I come to my own conclusions. But Henry's father said that he didn't want Henry's murder to cause any hatred, division, or chaos. Okay? And Tuesday was supposed to be about unity and holding the establishment accountable and demanding change. But now, as I say, the lasting images of that day is bins on fire, garden fences being broken, and people rioting. And so to the people who engaged, I know you're angry, we all are, but you are stupid. You are some of the most stupid people in society. You're some of the most undisciplined people in society because you allowed yourselves to be played yet again. Now, to Henry's family, on behalf of everyone who did turn up with the best of intentions, I am so deeply sorry that it was hijacked the way it was. You deserve better, and Henry deserved better. To the so-called patriots who did play their part in the riots, shame on you for saying you care while also causing so much damage, not only to people's property, but also to the patriotic movement itself. Now, I believe that this will escalate and that things are only going to get worse. We've got TikTok, who now have banned the hashtag White Lives Matter. It's gone. You're not allowed to use it. If you do, it'll get reported. You'll have your page taken down, your video, whatever it is, because as you can see here, it is deemed to be content that violates their community guidelines, and you're not allowed to do it. So White Lives Matter is banned, it's blocked, but Black Lives Matter, that's allowed. We have employers only hiring ethnic groups and disqualifying white people from applying for roles. And on top of that, we now have one of the primary reasons for the way Henry Novak and countless other white people are treated by police is because their own policies dictate that they will police ethnic minorities differently to the way that they police white people. So here, this is the College of Policing's official. It's their documentation basically. It's part of their policy framework, and it says quite clearly, improving policing for black people. Police Race Action Plan, improving policing for black people. And as I say, it's if you go into the policies, I won't get it all up on the screen, we'd be here for hours, but they essentially say that they will soft police ethnic groups because, you know, they might come from a poorer background. They might have suffered from oppression. You know, they might have had a rough time of it because of their skin colour. And so if they go out and stab someone or rob a shop or mug an old lady, well, they should be soft policed because it's not their fault that they're behaving that way. It's just, you know, they're a victim of their own skin colour, essentially. And what we're seeing in real time are police forces who are entirely captured by the woke narrative. We have police officers taking the knee. Let me show you. Yeah, good boy, good piggy. Yeah, you cuckold fuck, man. So, again, for anyone listening and not watching, a black guy has just said to a police officer, take the knee then. And he, oh, okay, oh, I'd hate to offend. And he gets down and he takes the knee for that fucking crackhead, George Floyd. But then have a look at this.
Yeah, but see how you all stood here? Take the knee and pay your respect for Henry. Your officers assisted in that man's death. I've drove 4.5 hours to get here. Half the people have, mate. We're fucking tired of you, him, and every police officer in the force. Your left ideology is woke and it is ruining the country. We're sick of it. It's disgusting.
All you do is just stand
and you just stand there.
Say nothing.
You're horrible, you're vile. You don't care.
Why don't you say something?
Look at all of these people who have come to show their respect for Henry.
To the Independent Office of Police Conduct, that's all I'm going to say.
That don't mean shit.
That don't mean nothing to us. He'll get off with it in 2-3 weeks. Sweep it under the carpet like Labour government always do. Keir Starmer should have been gone by now. He don't care. He brushes it all off. Muppets, mate.
Are you seeing the difference? Are you noticing it yet? How when a police officer is asked, will you take the knee for 18-year-old Henry Novak, the young white boy who was stabbed to death, the police are like, nah, I'm impartial. But when a police officer is asked, will you take the knee for some crackhead who died over in America because he took so much fentanyl it could have killed a man 6 times over, he's like, oh yeah, let me get down on my knees. Let me get down on my knees. I don't want to be seen as racist. This is the issue we have right now. People are so caught up in trying to appease people because of their skin colour, because they don't want to be seen as racist. That crazy things like that happen. Getting a police officer to go on, take a knee, and he does it. This is how brainwashed these people are. They go through the College of Policing, they go through the university system, they go through their training, their constant DEI courses. They soak it up like sponges, and then the moment they're told by an ethnic minority, go on, take a knee, they just do it. It's instinctive. But when you say, would you do the same for a white person? Well, I can't be accused of being called racist if I don't do that, so no. Now, of course, the argument would naturally be, well, yeah, Rich, they don't want it to kick off. They don't want, they don't want to be seen as racist. I don't care. I don't care anymore. People need to start standing up for themselves. Police officers need to start standing up for themselves. There's got to be a point where humanity kicks in. And the police officers in particular who responded to Henry, they should have seen that boy on the ground and gone, nah, like humanity's got to kick in, like here first. Like, I don't care what he said to you, mate. This is a boy in trouble. So we need to prioritize that. But they didn't. They didn't, because they're so brainwashed by this woke mind virus that Elon Musk goes on about that they just, humanity goes out the window. Common sense, pragmatism, logic goes out the window. And they have to prioritize not being seen to be racist in all circumstances. For anyone listening on Spotify or Apple and not watching on YouTube, we've just seen a very, very clear example of the woke mind virus, like I say, that has infected our police forces. Now, naturally, things always progress. Things never stay the same. And very rarely do things go backwards. They always go forwards. And so we're seeing this progression, this kind of woke mind virus manifesting as, I'll just show you, okay? I'll just show you. I'm going to show you this. Let me know in the comments what you think, because here you will see a white man get dragged to the floor and repeatedly kicked in the head while being held, essentially held down by a number of police officers. Take a look.
Hey, that's how they fucking get killed. Look, let me in
Now, that was, of course, at these riots at Southampton on Tuesday. And the thing is this, why has there been no condemnation for this behaviour? Why have the media not picked up on it? Who remembers the Manchester airport attack? Remember the outrage when a Muslim man was kicked in the head, despite the fact that he literally assaulted police officers and broke one policewoman's nose? There was a witch hunt for those officers, who were armed police officers, by the way. You're not allowed to take your hands off your weapon in that situation. You have to maintain control of your weapon and use your feet. That's the training. That's the handbook. But they were still dragged through the press. They were still dragged through the court system, even though they did the right thing. But here, I mean, the man's got his back to the fence. He doesn't seem to be any sort of threat to me. And they drag him to the floor and they kick him in the head multiple times. And the media, they're silent. And why has Keir Starmer said nothing other than to condemn rightfully angry people? Why is it that all Starmer has to say is that he will make sure that protesters face the full force of the law rather than the police for their shameful behaviour?
But no matter the pain we feel, there is no justification for more violence and disorder. The attacks directed towards police officers in Southampton last night were disgraceful and completely unacceptable. This is a time for serious work, not rage. And let me be clear, we will ensure anyone found engaging in disorder meets the full force of the law, as we have done before.
Anyone engaging in disorder. Now that is properly grey language, isn't it? He didn't say anyone attacking or assaulting people, which is already illegal, like we have just seen the police do. He doesn't say anyone smashing up people's property. He says anyone engaging. Well, what does that mean? Engaging in disorder. It's loose language so that it can be, applied to anyone so that they get to decide who is a criminal and who isn't. What is disorder? What constitutes engaging in it? Where is the line? Also, does anyone else think it's insane that Starmer and the entire establishment were completely silent since December last year, because that's when Henry Novak was killed, December last year, but we're only just finding out about it in the past couple of weeks. Starmer stayed silent for months. Nothing. Didn't say a word. But the moment angry citizens take to the streets, he's out and he's condemning it instantly. He and the establishment, they're always so quick to demonise anyone who's had enough and feels genuine anger while remaining as silent as possible for as long as possible when it comes to the real issue. Well, one man who wasn't silent was Nigel Farage. Take a look.
Think of this. The biggest fear a police officer now has going about his or her duty on the street is the fear of being reported for having acted in a way that was racially biased. That fear, now greater than dealing with a dying man living on the ground. Henry's family have responded to this in just the most extraordinarily dignified way. But I suggest the rest of us respond to this with pure, cold rage. This is wrong. All the values and standards of living in a free country where everybody is judged equally before the law have been trashed and thrown away.
And Nigel is, of course, he's spot on. There's nothing there I disagree with.
He was actually treated in a way that meant an accusation of a racial slur was treated more seriously than an act of murder. What does he say? I can't breathe. Familiar words? Remember career criminal George Floyd, who died in appalling circumstances in Midwest America a few years ago. Remember the reaction to that and the way the police behaved. Within a few days, Keir Starmer was taking the knee. Black Lives Matter exploded all over the country. Churchill's statue was defaced. The cenotaph was vandalised. And yet, what has the public reaction been from our leaders and politicians, and indeed, to be frank, much of the media to this? Silence. Absolute silence. Proof, if ever there was any, that we're living in a two-tier culture in this country where the rights and privileges of white people matter less than those of ethnic minorities.
Now, given the fact that we have undeniable proof that Nigel is correct, that he's completely justified in what he's saying, he is now also being attacked by the media and by Starmer himself.
I think Nigel Farage's reaction is the wrong reaction. And I start my answer to your question through the eyes of the family. They have said they do not want this whipped up. They have been through the most extraordinary, awful experience. They don't want this whipped up. And Nigel Farage is completely wrong to use this to try and create division. He would be wrong in any circumstances. But when Henry's family are saying, please don't do that, it's our son, then really, as politicians, as human beings, we should start where they start. And that's where I start.
Isn't it interesting how Keir Starmer uses Henry's family in this instance and says that they should be listened to because it fits his narrative? Yet he also said that all of the families that wanted and continue to want justice for their daughters who have been gang raped by foreign men are all far right and should basically pack it in and shut up. This is much bigger than Henry Novak. This is institutionalised racism against the native population of the UK in our own country. And Starmer uses Henry's family like this to try and gaslight us. He's a disgusting human being who is pushing the globalist, woke narrative. Starmer also went on to essentially blast Nigel Farage, like I say. He said, you know, the family didn't want any of this. And he's gone on to, like I say, completely denounce Nigel Farage and say that he shouldn't use language like that. This is also Keir Starmer back when George Floyd was killed.
Like you, I was shocked and angered at the killing of George Floyd and the response of President Trump and the US authorities to the peaceful protests, to people rightly demanding justice, has been an affront to humanity.
So he's allowed to say that he's angry, but Nigel Farage isn't. We're not allowed to say we're angry because we're far right, but he's allowed because it fitted the narrative. And then he goes on to blame Donald Trump. And, you know, he says that Donald Trump's reaction was an affront to humanity. Well, Starmer also mentioned in that video that these were peaceful protests. We saw the footage. The footage came out. They smashed, they razed entire cities to the ground. They set things on fire. They looted. People were killed. Police officers were put in wheelchairs. Like, I hope people are seeing the difference here between what seems to be acceptable for us and what we're allowed to be angry about, and how we're demonized for it, for being angry, shall I say. Yet everyone else is allowed to be angry when the victim is a black person. We're in some really, really deep, dark times. I'm sorry this has been so depressing. I'm going to be doing podcasts pretty much every day now. They're not all going to be like this. But just given what's been going on, particularly this past week, it's kind of hard to be cheery. So I do apologise to everyone watching.